All right, everybody. We are here. Today's Taste Life Nutrition Radio and podcast streaming live on kuhsdenver.com. Where I'm super excited for our conversation today. This is a conversation that's way outside of the box for me. And so I love bringing good research to the table. And when there's something, as we already spoke about, Alex, something that's so controversial, it's important to bring truth to the best of our ability so people can make their own good decisions. And I think that's the most important thing is people need to be able to make their own decisions. So today we have Alex Karp. He's the founder of Etha. I almost said Etha Naturals. So thanks for being here. I appreciate it a ton.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Cool. Okay, so first and foremost, we are here for one main reason. For Taste Life Nutrition Radio and Podcast here for one main reason that really is to look at health in a different way and flip the narrative. We're also often looking at health from a negative perspective. What can I avoid as opposed to what does health bring to me? What are the opportunities, right? So health truly gives us the capacity to fully live. And so that's why this show exists. And we're here to explore everything that we can from nutrition to epigenetics, which is the stuff that I love, leadership and faith, and all of these things that really make us what we are as a company. And so we also believe that the body is created with this amazing and remarkable intelligence, this gift that God gave us. And to add to that, the gift of plants that God gave us to utilize and for health and longevity and that kind of thing. So we fully believe our future is not fixed. We play a big role in what our future looks like in the daily choices that we make. And so we are now going to just jump on in. My goal is really to help people to understand how and what they can do to fully taste life. And so I'm super excited to get this going. First, Alex, what are you grateful for?
A lot. I think I'm right now most grateful for an interesting experience, having this opportunity that I get to live partially in Southern California. I also am partially in Czech Republic. I'm on this journey of establishing Etha, trying to help give natural plants, natural medicines, their credibility, make them more transparent, convenient, and consistent for people. And I have a lot of amazing friends in my life, a lot of family that's supported me. So just this kind of very interesting journey where through the ups and downs, and I kind of view it as if I watch a movie, we all want to see a movie that has this conflict, this struggle, there's some kind of pain, and then the resolution. If I
Mhm.
just had a simple, easy, comfortable life, it would be kind of like a movie that's very just boring and nothing happening. So I'm grateful for this journey and in this experience.
Something tells me though that when you started this company, did you have the expectation that it would be as difficult as it has been?
No, definitely not.
I don't think
No, no.
I don't think we usually do,
Yeah,
yeah.
this is not the first company I did, and at that time, my business partner, I had two other business partners in a previous company. We were doing some, I invented some little mobile accessories.
Mhm.
And at that time, we kind of had some success. It really wasn't scaling to what we wanted. And so we decided to sunset that business. And it was like, okay, well, what is the next thing we should be working on? I want to be contributing to the world. I want to make an impact. I have all these very wide range of interests. I love everything from art to engineering. I love all these different disciplines and learning as much as I can. So, I'm very curious and I get very bored doing the same thing. And at that time, this was December or somewhere around 2016. However, I've also had back pain in my lower back since high school. I played very competitive soccer when I was younger, and in high school, I noticed one time that I kind of tweaked my back and really horrible back pain.
Mm.
So I went to my doctor at that time. I grew up in the Midwest around the Chicago suburbs. And, they said, well, you have some weak muscles, fix your posture, do some physical therapy, and just get back out there. So I did physical therapy, went to my normal HMO doctor for 6 months, did this therapy, but it wasn't really helping. I still was kind of like had a weak back, struggling. And my soccer coach, I was fortunate that, we went to a very competitive high school for soccer
Mm.
in that area, and we had coaches from Europe, from England, from Scotland that were coaching the teams. And he was saying, "Well, I need, go to this chiropractor. He'll help you because I've seen this before." And me, my mom was a pharmacist growing up.
Okay.
My dad was an
Yeah.
engineer, and I kind of knew this path. I was very much
Mhm.
into science. I was very kind of focused on hard sciences and just data facts that side. I was like, I don't know, chiropractors. I was like, and at that time, this was early
Sure.
2010s. It was
Yeah.
kind of in the Midwest. It was like, I don't know, like that's not what. So, but I didn't have success with my normal doctor. So I,
Mm.
I went to the chiropractor, and it was initially it was kind of like a miracle because he was
Mhm.
able to realign my spine. And some of what was happening was that, as I played soccer, doing maybe ball headers or kind of twisting, I misaligned some of my spine. And he did a muscle test on me where I was lifting my leg, and it was super, super weak. I had no strength. He
Mm.
aligned my neck, aligned my spine, and all of a sudden I had amazing strength again in my lower back. And so for a long time, I was able to manage my lower back pain just with chiropractic care.
Yeah.
So I think that's kind of the first understanding that I learned about, health and wellness is that
Mhm.
it's best to take control of it and have a very, like, be a participant, right? It's like
Sure.
my
Yeah.
body, I know it the best. Pain is such a subjective qualifier anyway that
Mhm.
doctors don't have a good scale to tell you if they say, hey, I'm really in pain. They don't know what that means.
Mhm.
And that was kind of the first side of like, okay, well, I need to really understand what's going on, learn as much as possible, and take care of my, chronic health because I would say Western medicine doctors, I think they are absolutely amazing at trauma care, at like
Yeah.
triage. So like, it's
Yeah.
never been better. My dad
Yeah.
had a horrible aorta rupture. He'd
Oh,
had a open heart surgery, eight
scary.
hours. And like, I mean, it's amazing what miracles they can do from
Yeah.
that side. But I
Agreed.
think chronic health is something they're not very good at because
Agreed.
just the medications have side effects. There's a
Mhm.
lot more
Well, that's all they
lifestyle.
know, right? That's
Yeah,
all they
exactly.
know in chronic care is here's your medication. Well, why don't we start asking questions, right? You're
Yeah,
curious. That's
exactly.
my job is to be curious. Let's ask why all of this is going on in the first place. Yeah.
Yes.
Hmm.
And so now, fast forward 2016, after being an entrepreneur for a little bit, getting older, my back pain was slowly over the years, over the decades, getting a little bit more noticeable. I would kind of tweak my back. I would, have horrible pain where standing, sitting, like no sports, no running, even walking would be problematic. But, I'd use chiropractic care and I would kind of get adjusted. In about a week, it would kind of relax again and I'd come back to normal.
Yeah.
But I always had this kind of question in my mind where it's like, ooh, is this going to get worse one day? And just one
Hmm.
day it's not
Hmm.
going to get better because I
Yeah.
kind of felt like those episodes as I was getting older got
Yeah.
closer together and they got a little bit longer. Now it was like a week and like a day, a week and a half. And in 2016, I had one of these episodes where I was 5 months into it and it wasn't getting better. So I was really starting to
Scary.
get
Hmm.
depressed because I mean, back pain is so bad and so when I went to, kept going to doctors, got an MRI, and I have a degenerating disc in my lower back. That is the root cause, but they have no help for it. I
Hmm.
tried muscle relaxers, tried more stuff, tried physical
Yeah.
therapy over the years. Still nothing was helping. And and in that time with this kind of 5 month episode where I stopped playing sports, stopped really being able to travel, go out, I have this pain that's gnawing at me. So I'm kind of becoming grumpy and irritated
It
all the
changes
time.
you. It changes you
Yeah,
for sure.
very
It
much
changes
so.
your neurochemistry, right? It's so
Yeah, because then it's like
crazy.
I'm not
Yeah.
playing sports, I'm not enjoying life, I'm not thriving. I'm kind of just like
Mhm.
going to work, sitting kind of in a chair, being grumpy. Oh, like
Yeah.
friends call me, if you want to go do this? I'm like, nah, I don't want to go do that. You're just like, and then so getting depressed. So it's like, and then it
Mhm.
feeds off itself.
Yeah.
This mental anguish starts causing
Hmm.
more physical pain and kind of vice versa.
Yeah.
And so that was kind of the desperation where, I had been this lifelong journey trying to manage this back pain, had some success previously, but then got to this point where nothing was working, went to the doctors, and their last resort was, well, when you can't bear it anymore and can't live, we'll think about surgery, which would
Mm.
be
Mhm.
maybe a 50-50 chance of helping. I mean, some of those
Or
surgeries,
making it worse.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So that was kind of the situation. And at that time, my business partner, Victor, he was big into listening to podcasts when they were first kind of just starting up, because
Hmm.
he was actually into mixed martial arts way back in college before it became popular. So he followed some of these podcasters that kind of started off just talking about that niche market that turned into a larger one. And I would say that mixed martial arts in general is fascinating because they are pushing the physical body to such a limit. And
Yeah.
then they're literally fighting each other, which means they're
Yeah.
kind of trying to cause injury, and
Mhm.
they have to recover from injury. They have some really interesting health and wellness trials and techniques that they learn to kind of push the body to the absolute limit that I think is becoming more respected about what they're understanding about, what used to be kind of considered gym science or bro science.
Mhm. Yeah.
There's a lot coming into
Yeah.
some of that extreme case. But he listened to this podcast, and Chris Bell, who is a kind of a independent documentary make filmmaker, he was making and bringing awareness to a film called A Leaf of Faith,
Mm.
which is about a plant called kratom. And at this time, he was going out because the DEA had listed an intent to schedule kratom, and kratom is a jungle plant that grows in Indonesia, Malaysia, Thailand. Traditionally, people will pick the leaf of the tree and they'll either chew on it or they will dry it and make a tea out of it.
Mm.
And traditionally, they use it just for day laborers. Well, I want to work harder. I kind of like feel fatigue and kind of a little bit of aches and pains. So I chew this leaf or make a tea out of it, and it kind of helps me keep working harder. That's kind of the
Mhm.
tradition.
Mhm.
So, at that time, with this terrible chronic pain issue, kind of this depressed part of life, and heard about this plant on a podcast that was about to be scheduled, that the DEA wanted to get rid of it. I was
Yeah.
like, well, okay. I mean, it's unregulated right now. It's still available. Let's order some and see what it does.
Mhm.
So Victor and I go online, find some companies, order kratom, and the most common form of kratom is a dry powder. Like so people just pick the leaves, dry them, grind them into a powder. And this
Mhm.
will almost be like a matcha green tea powder. It's like
Yeah.
super fine consistency,
Mhm.
but kratom has its own unique smell to it, and it's a very bitter taste profile.
Mhm.
So we get this green powder in the mail, and it comes in kind of like some, I don't know, somewhat questionable bags. I mean, it's not like, just like paper bags with like a little bit of a liner in there. It's like handwritten Sharpie of like different varieties of kratom. It's like, okay, but it's like because I was in this super depressed state of all this pain and like in not finding success in any other way, it was
Mhm.
like, sure, I'm willing to try this random leaf powder and just take a spoonful of it and eat it because my pain is so bad and
Yeah.
nothing's helping.
Yeah.
So I think that's kind of some of the, appreciation for pain that I've developed,
Mhm.
that pain is the ultimate teacher,
Yeah.
or these situations will force me into something that I then have this experience or learn or do that I would not have been able to do if I was in a comfortable place in my life. So that's where I try to kind of change
Mhm.
perspective and say like,
Mhm.
hey, this is helping me in some other way, some direction.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. I want to real quick, if I'm not interrupting you, were you about to, I want to make sure I'm
Oh yeah,
interrupting
I'm
you.
so yeah, just found kratom. It was
Yeah.
took a spoonful of this, and then we kind of realized 15 minutes later that our
Mhm.
pain was gone. And this was kind of the start to Etha Naturals, was that I had this horrible pain condition,
Mhm.
found a plant that was amazing from the pain relief side and just helped with energy, mood, amazing, increase in my life, quality of life because of that. But
Yeah.
at the same time, there was inconsistency. I would order the same variety of kratom or try to learn about it. I like to go into primary research, so really deep diving how it's working, what's going on. And as I kind of went down that path, there were more questions, things
Hmm.
weren't
Always.
consistent.
Hmm.
And that was the start because of my engineering research
Yeah.
and development background. And then this plant that had amazing chronic pain potential solving for me, and kind of adding those two together. So how would I take engineering principles, kind of common testing, product development, and give that to this plant that had a very unknown kind of infantile industry, was just kind of starting up.
Yeah. So I always think timing is so interesting. And when you first reached out to me, and this has been however many months ago now, maybe the summer. I know, I think it was,
I think
yeah,
it's been
I
a
don't
while.
know. What I know, so in my mind, so I'm thinking it was like around Thanksgiving or just after Thanksgiving because my husband and I, we were traveling for family and we were in Oklahoma. And it's really funny because we're always listening to podcasts and books and stuff in the car. And so the first time I ever heard of Kratom was this podcast, Tucker Carlson. Did you ever, I think I sent it to you, but it was a Tucker Carlson podcast where he had on Dr. Ammons from the Ammons Clinic, right? And so he's this
Mm.
big clinical researcher, neurological brain function dude, right? And so it was so interesting because Laura and I are like, my husband, have you ever heard of kratom? I've never heard of kratom. What is kratom? And so what they were saying was Dr. Ammons had a friend of his who came to him and he basically I don't remember exactly how it went. I probably should have listened to the podcast before the show so to remind myself. But the point is, what he was finding was people who were taking kratom or this guy is their brains were shrinking. And so that immediately gives you that what's going on and why could this
Mm.
be? And in my world, I'm always going to say, and I didn't know it was a plant. I had no idea what it was, right? I'm like, okay, there's got to be more to the story. What else is there? And so, which is then, we're driving through Oklahoma and I see kratom. I'm like, there's kratom. What is this kratom stuff? And it was just after that you reached out to me and you're like, hey, I want to talk about kratom. I was like, okay, let's talk about it because I don't know anything about it.
Yeah.
So I think it's important, and I'm so glad that you're on because of your brain, because of your science mind, because of your research mind, and to have that understanding that this is a plant. God gave us plants for a reason, right? I think plants are medicine, whether it's fruits and vegetables or whether it's these herbs, right?
Yep.
But there's a lot of, I mean, we have to have accountability for
Hmm.
ourselves. It's up to us on the decisions that we make. And the last thing that I kind of want to throw in there is in my mind, and maybe, and I know that this is something that we'll talk about, but when I see whether it's pot, whether it's kratom, whether it's salvia, whether any of these things that you go get at some rando, 7-Eleven,
Yeah.
whatever it is, I mean, I wouldn't take it. I don't care what it is.
Correct.
I won't drink their Cokes, any of that
Yes.
stuff.
Yeah.
So that's the stuff that I think that we need to be so aware of is where we get it, how we get it, why we get it.
Absolutely.
We have to have a respect for it and an understanding of it. And so I just kind of wanted to bring in my perspective because it's very limited and what I heard that was so extreme, right? Kratom shrinking brains. So let's talk about that and have and kind of, you can start from your beginning and what you're finding in research, but those are the things that really scare people. And so I want there to be knowledge and understanding so people can make their own decisions, just like you did, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And you bring up a great point because yeah, personal responsibility it's also, no one knows my body better than me. No one knows your body better than you.
Yeah.
And this idea that, health and wellness is best approach as I would call it kind of an exploratory understanding. So having I have presence and awareness over my body. That's something I've learned over this
Hmm.
journey of going into the back pain is that
Yeah.
I went into meditation and yoga and just that teaching of, okay, how do I get better awareness to where the pain is in my body, actually feeling through it
Mhm.
and taking that responsibility because it is trying to, help me understand what's going on. And I would say that everything in this world has extremes or has limitations to it. Anything in this world can be the best part of your life, or it can be something that's toxic and causing problems.
Yeah.
I exercise as much as possible, kind of on maybe try to do 5, 6 days a week.
Hmm.
But there's a case is I could easily overexercise and stress my body too much. Water is, I need a lot of water, but same thing. Kratom is no different that it's an amazing tool and it can help, but it's also got to be responsible that, it can be used irresponsibly. There are things out there to be aware of and to be cognizant of.
Yeah. Cool. Totally agree. And I appreciate that. So let's talk about Kratom itself. You talked a little bit about where it's from.
Mhm.
Interestingly, and I got this from your website though, and I think it's kind of cool, but it's in the coffee family.
Yeah, yeah. So the Rubaceae family of plants.
Uh-huh.
And it's related to coffee that's kind of similar where coffee has, produces caffeine,
Hmm.
but kratom produces other unique alkaloids. So one of the main alkaloids is called mitragynine, and that is what has been researched and how we know why people use it for pain, depression, anxiety. So
Yeah.
mitragynine does interact with opioid receptors,
Mhm.
primarily the mu opioid receptor and the kappa opioid receptor. And that opioid receptor is what a lot of pain medications will interact with. But what's interesting about kratom is that it's a lot more complex than that.
Hmm. Yeah. I'm sorry. So I think that I was just sitting here. I feel like there's this interesting place where when we think about, oh my goodness, this plant's working on my opium receptors. But
Hmm.
we got these drugs that everybody's totally fine with taking and totally fine with prescribing that work on these opiate receptors that are not natural plants, they're chemicals that are human made, right?
Yes.
And so, but there are a lot of things that hit opiate receptors. We've got,
Hmm.
well, maybe
Cheese,
this is a little bit different.
chocolate.
That's what I was going to say is
Yeah,
gluten,
human breast
cheese.
milk. There's
Yeah,
so much. Yeah, and that's
exactly.
the complexity too of, as I've started to just deep dive into kind of pharmacokinetics and all these topics, is that everything is so much more complex and it's like this almost like psychology of, giving up that knowledge to somebody who has authority, just like, a person
Mhm.
in a white coat. And we think, oh, it's so magical, but it really isn't. And it's, there's so many more common things that we don't realize how um, common they are, that we
Mhm.
think it's something that is magical or kind
Mhm.
of like behind this curtain. But when we start to understand it, it becomes a lot more approachable for people.
Yeah. Another thing that I think is interesting, kind of going back to the coffee and being related. There, what I know about coffee, we can look at people's genetic or their epigenetic report, and we can see variants that allow them um, to be fast utilizers of caffeine or slow
Mm-hmm.
utilizers of caffeine, right? And so
Yes,
one of the things that is interesting is people tend to react differently to lots of things, right? To coffee, to
absolutely. Yep.
kratom, to drugs, right? But it's an interesting thing that, or an interesting point that if people are reacting differently, yes, it can be partly the plant, right? And I want to talk about that next. I want to dig in a little bit to the plant.
Hmm.
But it is how we're created. We're created
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
uniquely and so differently that we can't expect to have the same reaction to everything as other people would.
Yeah, and it goes back to that. That's why it's so important to be conscious of how our body's responding to something and really being aware of it. And yes, that's I think something that modern medicine is starting to actually admit to, that people have individual microbiomes, that I respond differently, and
Mhm.
also kind of what foods and supplements I'm taking will interact differently with other medications that I may or may not be taking. So there's a lot of complexity that I think is starting to actually be talked about and be appreciated,
Yeah.
not just kind of this, back in the day of like, oh, take 2 aspirin. It's the same for everybody. Don't worry about it and just do
Mhm.
it. It's kind of, I think there's a lot more humility, hopefully, coming
Mhm.
from that area that,
Mhm.
okay, here, I can give you this knowledge, and that's the thing that what people, medicine in general is that doctors practice medicine because, and I think that we should really approach it more from that level of like practice that
Mhm.
they
Mhm.
don't know all the answers. This idea, I think they've gotten too far away from that concept in the last, couple decades.
Yeah.
And so I think going back to that side of, well, here's the knowledge, here's what most people are doing, most people react this way to it. But here, what I recommend is, starting small, see how your
Mhm.
body responds to it, and then let's kind of keep making some changes. So I
Yeah.
think that way of approaching is very important for everything, including Kratom. And that's what
Yeah.
we tell people is,
Mhm.
okay, if you want to try Kratom, well, the research shows that most people use anywhere from about 1 gram to 5 grams of whole leaf product per serving. And that's going to be about, 4.5, 5 hours of kind of effective
Mhm.
ability or kind of like the
Mhm.
sensation about four and a half,
Mhm.
5 hours. But that, I mean, that's a big range, right?
Yeah.
1 gram
Yep.
to 5 grams
Yeah.
for some of our products could either be, 3 little micro tablets or it could be up to 12 tablets.
Mhm.
And that's, but that's,
Mhm.
and that giant range is all normal. So, and that's what we're finding too, is that this idea
Yeah.
of normal, I think, is a
Yeah.
much more encompassing
Mhm.
range because sometimes, as we start to kind of explore and take that responsibility and like, okay, I want to try this. Oh, it's not really working for me. Oh, I really need to double it. And it's like, am I okay? Is that okay? And like, yeah,
Mhm.
because like normal is a much broader range for
Yeah.
everybody. And I think
Right.
that understanding is helping just, calm us all down that, yep, we're all normal. We all fit within kind of this idea
Mhm.
or area.
Yeah. So when we were just before we went live, we were talking about the plant itself and what can make it effective, less effective, more effective, because there are different, what you'd said, there are different stressors, right? So that can create certain alkaloids components. I'm
Yes.
using what I think are your words, but I'm not sure. But it changes the plant, these stressors, right? And so stressors are good for us, and stressors are good for
Hmm.
plants, and to a degree, right? We just
Right.
when things become chronic that it's a problem, but it does change the plant, which is what you said. I believe what you said was it's not always the easiest thing to do in a lab. So let's dig into that, what you're finding with the plants and how things change, and how are you able to create consistency in your products?
Yeah, that's a great question. And so, yeah, in general, all plants create compounds in response to, well, the compounds that humans are generally interested in that have some kind of pharmacokinetic effect, generally almost all the time, those compounds are created by plants in response to some stress in their environment. So nicotine is created as a pesticide for plants.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's kind of an example of, a stress of this plant, of this insect trying to eat the plant. The plant produces some compound in response. And that's why we have all these magical plants that can produce all sorts of
Yep.
amazing compounds that have
Mhm.
pharmacokinetic effects. And so it kind of going back to that story of where Kratom was very inconsistent. So when I'd order Kratom online, sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't work. We started to do a lot of testing or, find test labs that could identify the alkaloids that were in Kratom. And so that was the first goal of us with Etha was, hey, we want to provide this transparency and information about these test results.
Mhm.
And that's kind of what we do is all the kratom coming in, we harvest. We work with harvesters in Indonesia and Thailand, and unfortunately, they're in more of a kind of subsistence farmer situation. So they're harvesting either wild kratom or there's small orchards that have been planted and they're harvesting. But things like amount of rain that falls in a given amount of time will either stress the plant or allow it to grow a lot of leaves. And that has this benefit sometimes that the stress of less rain kind of concentrates the alkaloids. It's a
Mhm.
little bit stronger
Mhm.
when it's actually the dry season, much
Mhm.
like if people love wine out there, when it's a really bad situation for weather and the plants have to really fight hard to produce those grapes for that season, it produces much more flavorful grapes in that,
Mhm.
stressed situation.
Yeah, so interesting.
But because of all those variables that, we're constantly understanding, constantly evolving, what we do is we work with our harvesters and import what we think is kind of the same type of kratom, but we have to just send it out to a lab test and we identify 7 or 8 of the top alkaloids and then sort those batches into our different product lines after
Mm.
those test results. So,
Interesting.
so
All
it's a little
right.
bit of a kind of supply chain challenge, and we
Yeah,
try
yeah.
to do what we can with the information. So it's more about, okay, how do we find or identify some kind of quantitative
Mm-hmm.
test? And
Mm-hmm.
then how do we match that with the benefits that we're trying to provide? And
Mm-hmm.
then continually developing, continually trying to change because we don't know everything. So how do we kind of keep evolving and making it as best as we can year after year?
Well, and I would say that about most everything, science in general, but even drugs. We've got
Yeah.
drugs, and I keep going back to the drugs because drugs are so trusted for whatever reason. I don't know. Not the plants, but the drugs are.
Yeah, yeah, it's
Um,
it's fascinating.
yeah,
It's
it is.
really fascinating.
Marketing works, money works.
Yes,
Um,
yes.
but we take drugs where we don't even understand the mechanism of action of them.
Hmm.
Or we're like, here. So point to that is there are lots of things we don't understand about lots of things. And we have a place we are today in science. And I try to explain this always when I'm working with my clients and patients or anybody who will listen to me really. But we have this place. And I think as those of us who love science, at least for the most part, I've got a huge caveat to this, but those of us who love science appreciate the curiosity and appreciate that it changes and it's going
Yeah.
to change. And we have to be open to that change and we can't put blinders on. And that's what I find in medicine oftentimes. I don't know how people can come into medicine, practice medicine, put on blinders and go, this is what I know and this is how it is and it can't change, right?
Yes.
And this is often how studies are done. And we sure we want to be right, but egos are huge. And
Hmm.
it's beautiful to remain curious and to want to go, oh, either I was dead wrong about this, or it's bigger and more expanded, and that's okay because now we know more and we continue to move on. But I think it's like that. It has to be that way in medicine. But with these plants too, how much have we learned over the last however many years of these plants that are doing amazing things for people, right? But
Yeah.
also, if we don't treat them responsibly, they can be harmful. So I think it's fascinating where our minds are with the two different, the natural versus the chemical. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah, it is. And that's
Mhm.
and that's something because like I was when I first graduated college, I was an engineer for Hewlett Packard for 10 years. And part of my job at one point was product development. And so we had these giant products that we would uh, develop in a lab, and we had lab situations to try to simulate the real world
Mm,
because, this was like a pre-launch of the product, and we wanted the engineers to be able to find problems with this product in the lab before we mass produced a bunch of them and put them out in the field, and then had to take warranty returns or issues that way. And that part of, developing a lab experiment or trying to make this clinical setting to understand what would happen in the real world is incredibly difficult.
yeah.
And that's what I don't understand with, medications is that okay, yes, great. You have this clinical trial pathway that is you're trying to understand the mechanism action, the efficacy, trying to understand the safety profile. But that clinical trial in itself is never going to be as good as the real world, right? Like we always try to get as much information as possible before that product launch. And that's what is confusing to me about this, medicinal industry is
Mm-hmm.
that it's like, well, this product hasn't had clinical trials. We don't know if it works. It's like, well, but these natural products have been around for thousands of years and people
Since
are
the
still
beginning of
using them.
time.
So we have, yeah, so it's like, well, we
Yeah.
have thousands of years of data that can't actually be replicated. Like, yes, there's some interesting parts to clinical trials that I can create this particular setting, tweak a variable and see how something interacts. And so that scientific process is amazing and I love it. But there's also a lot of limitations to it. And so I'm
Mhm.
not sure why there's such this reverence for, oh, we created this new compound that we don't know what it does or is going to do. We think we do some of these tweaks and then we put it out in the market. And I think I mean, I want to, I don't know about the number exactly, but I think something like 60% or like a large percentage of medication is prescribed for off-label use,
Yeah.
which
Yeah.
means that, and so off-label use means that the doctor is prescribing it for a disease or a benefit that is not actually what the clinical trial
Hmm.
understood or uncovered. So that means kind of most medications are used for a different reason than they studied in this clinical trial. So
Hmm.
to kind of give people an idea of how different, what this clinical trial actually uncovers and provides about these compounds, it's so
Hmm.
much more complex that the real world and how people use it, how it interacts with their body, there's a lot more to it than just simply, oh yeah, this drug is what it says it is. It does what it says it does. It's not that simple.
No, no, for sure. So let's talk about kratom and its effects, right? So we know that it's got some pain relief effects because that's what you've talked about in your story, and you used a
Yes.
little bit about energy for the workers and that kind of thing. So
Mhm.
what can people expect? And I'm definitely not talking about some rando store where you just go pop a kratom tea bag. I don't
Yeah.
know. But from your company, from reputable companies, people who are really good at what they're doing, what can be expected and why would people want to take it?
Yeah, I mean, I think so. There's a lot of good research surveys out from Johns Hopkins, from other universities that have looked at least at, okay, let's take a survey of people who identify as kratom consumers
Mhm.
and do a bunch of questionnaires of why they use it. And so from a lot of these, survey results, and then also, the mechanism of action, we have a lot of understanding from how the alkaloids interact with animal bodies or animal
Mhm.
cells.
Mhm.
But basically, the reason people consume kratom is that one is kind of like a lifestyle enhancement. Okay, it's kind of like a replacement for coffee. I want to like get going in the morning. I want to feel good. I might have some kind of, just like minor aches and pains in the morning. I just want to improve my life and
Mhm.
do more work, go do, whatever else I want to do in life. Kratom kind of helps me like a cup of coffee. Okay, great. Another group is severe chronic pain, like myself. So this is, degenerating disc, fibromyalgia,
Mhm.
cancer. I had a friend that kratom got him through his testicular cancer episode.
Mhm.
So there's that severe chronic pain. There's also, I'll call it the mental pain side that accompanies that, which is depression and anxiety.
Okay.
Kratom, that's a big use case for people. So kind of focus, depression and anxiety, that kind of, area of mental pain.
Mhm.
And then the last one that has maybe some of the most awareness in the recent years because of the opioid crisis is that people will use kratom to self-medicate to reduce their dependency on other substances. So there's some,
Mhm.
so it
Yeah.
definitely helps with
Mhm.
opioid addiction is what we see
Okay.
people using it
Mhm.
for. There's also some survey results that people are using it for methamphetamine addictions. And then also there's a lot of people that report using it for alcohol addiction.
Mm.
And
Interesting.
so, and the main reason that kratom can help in these areas is because the alkaloids interact with some of these same receptors that other substances do, but kratom alkaloids are a partial agonist. So there's this, it activates the receptor, but there's kind of this plateau effect where
Hmm.
people try to consume more kratom to get, more like a higher and higher effect.
Hmm.
At
Hmm.
some point, the kratom alkaloids do not keep activating the
Huh.
receptor. So it kind of hits this plateau.
Yeah.
And then in fact, it starts to maybe interact with like the kappa opioid receptor, which causes dysphoria, which causes nausea, kind of discomfort. So it's
Hmm.
almost like this, it
Yeah.
has
It's
alkaloids
like,
that
mhm.
interact, yeah, in a counter indicating way that almost it's kind of like guardrails and kind of helps people not overconsume, at least in the natural form.
I mean, my perspective is God's pretty cool. I mean, I mean, it's a pretty cool way of creating something like that. I just think that's awesome.
Yeah.
So what was I going to ask you? I was going to ask you something. I just lost it. I'm looking at my notes. Sorry. There was something. I guess it doesn't really matter. Really. Oh, I know what I was going to ask you. So, for your situation with your pain, is there or is anyone noticed that you hit a point where it doesn't work as well anymore over months or years or whatever?
With sodas, yeah, kratom keep
Mhm.
and what so the main part about what we understand, and so this is the other interesting part about deep diving into this research is that
Mhm.
to your point, we we don't know how a lot of medications work, or we think we have this, oh, they know how these medications work. There's this kind of, I don't know, image that it's very well understood, but diving deep into it, there's a
Mhm.
lot of, well, we think this works. So, in general, opioid receptor, one of the main issues with the medications is that they recruit beta arrestin, which causes what they think it causes both the respiratory depression. So when someone
Mhm.
overconsumes an opiate, the body stops breathing, and that's why people actually pass away is they
Mhm.
stop breathing. And then
Fascinating.
secondly,
Excuse
that
me.
recruitment of beta arrestin also is what they think causes the tolerance, because a lot of people may be aware of this or not, that when someone takes an opioid medication, you have to kind of keep increasing that dosage if you're
Mhm.
taking it every day to
Mhm.
get the same pain relief effect.
Mhm.
Because, like you said, the body is amazing. God made this incredible body that's super adaptable. And it's one of these
Mhm.
things that if you start doing something to the body, it starts to change and adapt to it.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
that's kind of the other part.
Mhm.
Now, kratom, the alkaloids are what's called a G protein agonist. So that is why we don't see the respiratory depression issues. That's probably also why we don't seem to report, or there doesn't seem to be, a tolerance buildup with kratom. I mean, I take the same amount for the last 10 years,
Okay.
but I would say that, caveat when I say same amount, my amount also changes. It goes up and down sometimes because there's times where my pain, I don't know, doing something stupid where I'm crawling around or doing some new activity. I'm really stressing my back. So
Yeah.
my pain is much, much worse. And then
Mhm.
so for those days, I'll take more kratom,
Mhm.
compensate. But then there's
Mhm.
other times where if I'm doing a lot more yoga, meditation, kind of really letting my body
Mhm.
heal, or doing
Mhm.
like fasting, then it's like, well, okay, I don't have the pain, I don't take kratom. So I think that side of it is, even though it doesn't seem to be this kind of tolerance that gets created, I still
Mhm.
think it's good to take breaks. I mean,
Yeah.
even taking breaks from food, right? Like I think
Mhm.
in general, intermittent fasting is one of these underappreciated
For sure.
health tools
Yeah.
that is really beneficial. So I think it lets your body
Mhm.
reset, it lets our body heal naturally. And so I think some type of intermittent fasting or partial fasting, partial kind of, I'm going to remove all of these substances, whether it's caffeine, whether it's, I don't know, any other supplements I'm using. I'm going to take a break from that for a month, take it, let my body reequilibrate, kind of get back to what it wants to do, and then I'll start kind of slowly adding in back supplements or certain types of foods that my body responds well to.
Yeah, fully agree. We did I think in February, we did a 4-day fast. It was my first long
Mm,
fast. So super interesting.
yeah, how did it go?
But
Was it?
I was glad when it was done. But it was okay. The interesting thing that both my husband and I noticed is you're hungry, but you don't get hungrier, right?
Yeah,
It's just kind
yeah,
of this constant sort of nagging hunger, and you got to keep yourself busy doing other stuff. So
yeah,
it's
yeah.
uh it's not something that I want to do regularly, but I will continue to do. And I think even fasting and intermittent fasting, doing it responsibly is important and knowing your body.
Hmm.
And then going back to all of the other things, whether it's coffee, even supplements. I'm a big believer in supplements. I use them all the time. I think therapeutically they're necessary when we're dealing with, lots of different things. But when I get someone to a point to where they're happy and healthy and they're maintaining, I'm like, pulse your supplements. You don't need your supplements all the time. So take some time off, right?
Hmm.
And so I think that's a really good point to with anything, as you said, kratom, all of it is to take time away, give the body a break. It's created to do what it's supposed to do based on food and water,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
It's
And our
supposed to
body
be.
is super adaptable, so we can adapt
Yeah.
to anything. And
Yeah.
that's we always got to kind of change perspective a little bit and
Mhm.
see what the environment is doing to us and how do
Yeah,
we,
for sure.
yeah, really understand. I mean, and I think that's I think I've said this before. That's almost like the best and worst thing about being human is
Mm.
that super adaptability because it means we
Mhm.
can adapt and keep
Yeah.
moving, keep doing all this. And humans are amazing. If you just go on YouTube and
Yeah.
search, I mean, you can find humans doing
Mhm.
all sorts of super creative, whether it's personal athletics or it's
Mhm.
building or yeah, absolutely amazing. But it also means that we can adapt to a very terrible environment for us and then it gets to that point where we don't quite realize that we've adapted to it. We just think it's normal, and so sometimes it's
Okay.
it's hard sometimes to really
Mhm.
change perspective and get out of that, but it's yeah,
Yeah.
humans are super adaptable, and we always kind of
Mhm.
gotta change a little bit and see what
Mhm.
that environment's doing to us.
Yeah. Just kind of add on to that. I always find it's so interesting. And I hear this a lot is I didn't know how good I could feel. Or I didn't know I
Mm.
felt that bad, right?
Yeah, yeah. There's
Yeah.
I've
Hmm.
I can think of a few experiences through life that I
Hmm.
actually yeah, and there was actually a time in college where I came back from a semester and with a small group of friends and my one of my older brothers, we actually did MDMA. So this
Hmm.
is kind of the active ingredient in ecstasy.
Hmm.
It's a very potent antidepressant where it will essentially cause your brain to dump and flood the brain with serotonin.
Hmm.
But that experience, I mean, that experience was amazing for a lot of reasons. And I learned a lot about myself, including that, oh, this is what life could be like. Well, maybe
Hmm.
I'm
Yeah.
depressed. Maybe I should change, my life in a different direction
Hmm.
because all like I didn't have these self-limiting beliefs at that time. I wanted to go, just even simple activities that I wanted to go do. And it was like, oh, this is a great choice. This is life can be so exhilarating, so
Yeah.
great. I want to find more of this. And
Hmm.
it wasn't like I wanted to do ecstasy more. It was because it's a lot more subtle. I think that's the other thing that and there's a lot more research now about ecstasy being increasing neuroplasticity. It's something
Hmm.
that really helps change that perspective. And what's amazing is that I think a lot of there was a lot of stick. I mean, I was very hesitant to do ecstasy a long time ago because
Sure.
there's the stories and stuff you hear about it, but yet it's a lot more subtle as far as my preconceived notion about a lot of these compounds was that, oh, it's going to be like taking alcohol, where it's like very noticeable, kind of makes me foggy. And it's like, well, I don't want, I like who I am. I
Yeah.
want to like feel more this way.
Yeah.
And that's what
Yeah.
I find is that, and Kratom is a good example where taking Kratom, the best the best indicator is like well, I don't feel like I'm taking something. I just feel like I'm having a really good day. And that's what
Yeah.
people report, where it's like, okay, take
Mhm.
us, we take a small amount, adjust it correctly. And then we have to kind of remind people that they took Kratom, because it's like friends and family over the years, as we've asked or they've asked, and we'll give them a sample. Well, then we'll go about our day doing activities, and they don't realize it until, we'll ask like, "Hey, how you feeling?" It's like, "I feel really great." And it's like,
Mhm.
"Yeah." It's like, maybe it was Kratom. They're like, "Oh, maybe," but then they don't realize it until,
Yeah.
4 hours later,
Yeah.
when like, "Oh yeah, my knee pain is like, I can feel my
Mhm.
knee pain again." And so we don't realize how many of
Yeah.
these, stressors or pain or issues that we're just
Mhm.
dealing with, until we have the
Mhm.
ability to kind of take some of it away. And then it comes back and like, "Oh yeah, I do have knee pain that I've been dealing with every
Mhm.
day and just kind of have been learning
Mhm.
to ignore it. But
Yeah.
oh yeah, like it was kind of making me a little grumpy and I'm not realizing it." So
Mhm.
yeah, I didn't know how good it could feel.
Yeah. Yeah. I want to throw something out there real quick, because I think for supplements, but also for drugs and for lots of things, they can be also used as crutches. So I have to say, as a
Yeah.
someone who's always digging for the root cause, right? We want to understand if there's anxiety, if there's depression, if there's pain, if there's these things. We want to understand the why, so we can go from the bottom
Mhm.
up. But there are often times where we just need more. And I totally get that, right? I mean, it's just what it is. And when something is biomechanical, so for example, your situation, my husband broke his leg. It was a compound tib fib. It's fused now, right? I mean, there's nothing you can do about that kind of pain. It's just, it is what it is. And so, those are, I think, I just had to throw out there. We always want to know why and do our best to help the body to do its job on its own.
Mhm.
But having access to things like this, in their good, healthy, natural state is I think it's amazing. I think it's
Yeah, and that's a great, yeah, really great point. Because I mean, even myself, I use Kratom for the pain, but several years ago, I finally found that if I do kettlebell exercises, that's able to strengthen my back muscles in the, so like,
Mhm.
I've been doing lots of exercises my whole entire life, but a few years ago, I finally found that kettlebells, because I think it's the squatting and the glute engagement, has really helped strengthen the right muscles and the right balance,
Yeah.
that has been an amazing way to compensate for that degenerating disc, in a way that's not just taking a supplement and removing the pain or reducing the pain. It's helping me kind of protect everything.
Mhm.
So I think that, like that exploration. So like that's the
Yeah.
other part about this back pain that I'm, you know, choosing to look at it as I'm fortunate for, that with this
Mhm.
back pain, I went down this path of understanding and appreciating breath work. That is an amazing tool
Mhm.
that can be phenomenal. I went
Mhm.
down to the path of meditation and yoga, and this kettlebell exercises.
Mhm.
So that pain has been a teacher, or that indicator for me to find a way to learn about these things and incorporate it into my life, not just mask it or cover it up.
Yeah.
It's not just a simple, there's
Mhm.
no, I think that's the other thing that I really have been trying to incorporate, is that it's not a single, there's no silver bullet, there's no one
Yeah.
simple one thing that's going to solve it. It's one thing that's incorporated into this
Mhm.
lifestyle of a lot of changes, a lot of activities, a lot of other supplements. I mean, I take other supplements, I eat healthy, I drink
Mhm.
water. So
Yeah.
that's part of it too, right? It's like
Mhm.
how do we incorporate those natural parts? Because
Mhm.
kratom, one of the, say, negative side effects can be, it can cause constipation.
Ah,
And now
interesting.
that's typically only at much higher doses, or people are over consuming. But I found that if I consume more water, I don't have that constipation, or it doesn't affect me. So it's one of those things like, which I need to be
Water,
doing
more
anyway.
fiber.
Yeah, right. Yeah, yeah, exactly. So it's one of those things of everything has, every in this world, there's benefits and
Mhm.
risks to it. And how do
Yeah.
we just incorporate and balance it and
Mhm.
really understand what we're trying to do with it?
Yeah. So, a quick question, because I don't know. because I'm, until today, still fairly ignorant on kratom, but there are different colors. And so I don't know, and I guess I'm curious if
Mhm.
this is something that is pushed in the market, the different colors mean something. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yes, yeah, that was actually so when we first got into Kratom, we learned about this. There's white vein, green vein,
Okay.
and red vein. Now there are plants, there are kratom varieties and different genetics that do produce the leaf color as a tree is growing can be a different color,
Hmm.
kind of. I mean,
Okay.
typically, yeah, t typically the newer leaf will have more of like a yellow color. So
Mm.
it's kind of like white tea is just, the younger tea leaf.
Okay.
The
Hmm.
white vein is typically the younger leaf that gets picked. There are tree varieties that have only green colored leaves. Some have kind of like they'll see a little bit of a reddish color starts to come through. But that doesn't necessarily correlate to the alkaloids that do
Okay.
have different physiological effects.
Mm-hmm.
And so the reason that, I think you're bringing up the color of the veins is that people will take kratom and report anything from, oh, well, this is pain relief and energy to this is muscle relaxation and kind of feeling sedated. So there's this huge spectrum of
Hmm.
all across the board. And so it is true that people have these different experiences and there's different physiological effects because there's different alkaloids in kratom.
Okay.
And depending on the genetics of the plant primarily, that plant will produce different amounts of alkaloids. And that's why there can be such a range of effect, say from energy to relaxation.
Okay.
People in the market tried to try to like classify this based on a vein color. They
Hmm.
thought that,
Okay.
was what was driving it, but it's really not. It's really the
Okay.
alkaloid profile itself.
Okay. Gotcha. Cool. And so you have, I'm pulling up your website real quick because you have several different, what I see here, I've got discomfort relief, pain relief, right? Energy, sleep, rest, hormone balance, focus, stress, mood, and sociability. And so
Mhm.
all of those are based on your data with the different alkaloids. Is that correct?
I mean, it's based on either published research
Okay.
or kind of some of our, understanding, analyzing the published research, some of it being our internal self-experimentation, some of it being
Mhm.
kind of what we see with consumers. So we try to just provide, use the knowledge that's out there,
Mhm.
provide our own testing or interpretation of it, as well as kind of what we see and what we've done. Do have our lab, so we, test the alkaloids. We do as much as we can, but it's kind
Mhm.
of this collective knowledge.
Okay.
And I'd also say, based on what you kind of read on that website, does also include some other botanicals like
Okay.
Tongkat Ali, which
Mhm.
has been researched and known and been tested for increasing both males and females' testosterone levels back to a healthy
Mhm.
level and kind of making it more bioavailable.
Yeah.
So Tongkat won't, boost it kind of like it's not going to make it higher than natural levels, but it will
Mhm.
just help whatever age we're at, kind of help make that testosterone that we used to produce. It'll kind of help increase it a little bit back to normal levels,
Mhm.
and then also help it from getting wrapped up in other enzymes or
Yeah.
hormones that stop it from functioning. And then
Yeah.
also that sociability is along the lines of kava kava, which is
Okay.
kind of a ceremonial root product from the
Mhm.
Polynesian islands.
Mhm.
People would kind of tribes would kind of typically use it as tribes were coming together to basically lower anxiety. And kava kava interacts with some of the same receptors that like anti-anxiety medications are known to interact with,
Okay.
or that ethanol alcohol is interacts with. So when people drink alcohol,
Mhm.
there's kind of this MDMA receptor and some of the GABA receptors get interacted with, and that's kind of why people feel more social, kind of open
Mhm.
on alcohol.
Mhm. Mhm.
Well, get or kava has kava lactones that interact with some of those same receptors, but it doesn't have the problem of, ethanol needing to be processed by your
Mhm.
body is very toxic. There's a lot of negative side effects to it.
Sure.
Kava doesn't have that same issue of what ethanol creates.
Interesting. Very cool. All right. Well, so your website, Etha Naturals. Oh, remind me, when were you founded? When did you start?
In July of 2017.
Okay, so it's been a while. Yeah.
Yeah, so about 9 years,
Yeah.
getting coming along. It's been
It's always great and always hard.
yes, it's been a wild journey, yeah, through everything.
Yeah.
Really trying to push the industry forward. And so there is some recent news that now the DEA is going to schedule a substance called 7-OH. So this is mitragynine can be synthetically or semi-synthetically converted into a metabolite called 7-hydroxymitragynine. And that has unfortunately caused a lot of problems for some people that have the addiction in their past.
Mm.
And that's where, it's kind of this, as you put it, God made this amazing natural plant that has the right alkaloid balance, has all these benefits, has some of these self-limiting alkaloids,
Hmm.
but people have taken mitragynine, extracted it, purified it, semi-synthetically changed it into this super potent isolated form that does not have the same, benefits as kratom. So there's that concern, but that's finally being hopefully cleared up in the market because there's been a lot of confusion about it where
Hmm.
people have called 7-OH, marketed it as kratom, and so people are
Ah,
confused. That's been kind of the recent battle in the
okay.
last 3 years has been the issue we're trying to solve now.
Okay. Which is why we've got to be so careful about what we're purchasing. I mean,
Yeah.
it really is scary to just, I mean, with just like I said earlier, even with just pot. I mean,
Yeah, it's like cannabinoids.
pesticides
Yeah.
and the mold and the stuff that's on these products that are
Or
really
all these
harmful.
semi-synthetic
Yes.
cannabinoids like
Yes.
HHC,
Hmm.
HC10 dash what I mean it's just and we don't know how I'm right. And like, yeah,
Yeah.
we have
Yeah.
cannabis, we have these
Hmm.
cannabinoids that have been
Hmm.
interacting with our system for thousands of years. Great.
Hmm.
These semi-synthetic that are slightly different. And that's the other interesting part too, is that understanding so there's something called isomers with all these molecules, and that
Hmm.
was a big understanding, kind of back to that question of, how do we select these varieties or select our supply chain coming in and divide it into those different benefits? Because there's four alkaloids in kratom that are very similar to each other: mitragynine, speciogenine, speciosialatin, and I think, and well, painanthine is kind of similar as well, where they're called isomers, meaning that, we define a molecule based on the number of elements in it. And I can do that with my hand, where I can say I have 5 digits, one thumb, I have, certain number of joints, I have one giant palm. That can define my hand. But at the same time, so I can also, I have two hands where that definition is accurate for both my left and right hand.
Hmm.
But if there was a receptor for my left hand, well, my right hand wouldn't fit in it. It would fit in backwards.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
that's where isomers become very, very important in molecules that are interacting with our body. And that's something that we haven't really mm, appreciated or really, given that information to the public when it comes from medications, because
Mm.
medications will create different isomers based on the manufacturer of the drug. So different drug brands can have different interactions with the body because they're technically creating the same drug, but the isomers are different. And so that was something that, we learned
Yeah.
about through Kratom with these
Hmm.
alkaloids, because the early test results, test labs weren't able to show the difference between these isomers. They were reporting one number, and the plants were having different effects on people. So we had to kind of redo this lab testing and better understand that, oh, this one reported number is actually four different numbers, and they have, depending on which number of those, now one of those four numbers are bigger, has a different indicator on
Hmm.
what the kratom benefit's actually going to be.
Interesting. Crazy cool stuff. All right. Well, we're at the end of our time. Hard to believe.
Oh,
But this
great.
has been, yeah, so fascinating. Thank you so much for hanging out and, giving us some good information and all of your research and all of your time. This is cool stuff. So tell people I know, I mean, I said it a few minutes ago. So Etha Naturals is the website. Are there other places you want people to go? I know that you've been doing some other podcasts and that kind of thing. What would you like people to know and where should they go?
Yeah, so ethanaturals.com is our website for kratom and other botanical needs. We also do a weekly podcast, um, Live Fully with Kratom podcast. And then we do have social media at Etha Naturals on most of the social media. And so with that, we happy to answer questions, especially on our podcast. If people want to submit
Mm-hmm.
questions or have
Cool.
more ideas they want us to explore, we always love getting that feedback from
Mhm.
customers because, or just people in general, because we really love to, keep exploring, keep changing. We're
Mhm.
not done with any of this. We're always constantly improving, constantly learning more. So yeah, I would love to hear from people and definitely yeah, we'll respond and we'll do everything we can to help people out.
Cool. Awesome. Well, good stuff. Thank you again for hanging out with me. This was a lot of fun. I
Yeah.
appreciate it a ton. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you for your time. Thank you for, yeah, doing this as well.
Yeah, cool. Well, for everybody else, let me get to finish up my notes here. You can always come here, find us, Taste Life Nutrition radio and podcast. You can find me, Taste Life Nutrition on all the socials, of course, the website and all of the things. So, what we fully believe here is, which is so fun that you hit on this so beautifully because this is what we're always saying is the body is always adapting and it's always communicating. And we want to take the time to listen to what it's trying to tell us. And if you do decide you want to try something like kratom or any of other of the plant medicines out there, really be aware and listen to your body and go to people or organizations who you trust and who have the right um, who are doing the right thing by people. There are a lot, there are those who aren't. And so we need to really be aware of that. So always stay curious, always listen to your body. I am here every Thursday, 10 a.m. Mountain Time. And know this too, that the health isn't the goal, that really is the capacity to help us to live fully. And that's all we are here at Taste Life Nutrition is we want to help people to change their perspective and really look for what the possibility is when we have full health. So let's go out there, let's taste life, and let's have a lot of fun. And so thank you again for being here. If there's anything I can do for you, please let me know. Happy to chat anytime. I love what you're doing.
Great. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. And live fully is what we're trying to do.
Yeah, I love it. Thank you. We'll see you later.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay. Bye, y'all.